And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan, and this is your aviation weather outlook for the state of Alaska on this Saturday, November 1st, 2025. And to set things up, as of this Saturday later morning, there's quite a bit of IFR conditions across areas of the interior, along portions of the Gulf Coast. There's a strong area of low pressure in the Gulf. This feature will gradually begin to diminish on Sunday, but before it does so, some stronger winds, heavier precipitation coming up in here along the northeastern Gulf Coast into areas there outside of Cross Sound, Glacier Bay National Park area. So as we get into Sunday morning, we'll still have IFR conditions, especially along the intercoastal mountains, butting up against British Columbia here in the Panhandle, extending up into the coastal mountains there of southeast of Alaska, areas of light snow with lower visibility and ceilings. That will start to shrink, drifting northward, but Sunday morning, quite a bit of IFR here across the interior, along and west of the Alaska Range, as well as up here around 40-mile Gold Country, Eagle down to near north of Northway, and then much along the North Slope Arctic coast. Even could be a few flashes of lightning off of the Panhandle coastline there, off of Port Alexander and Prince of Wales Island. For Sunday afternoon, still could be a flash of lightning or two here along the eastern Gulf Coast, just off of the Panhandle coastline, with IFR conditions continuing along the intercoastal mountains there of the southeast, up into the Wrangell, St. Elias area, including McCarthy, and then up along the Beaufort Sea coast between Kaktovik and Utqiagvik, some certainly lower ceilings there and brisk winds, and then we find pockets of IFR, west arm of the Alaska Range back out here into the southwest interior up toward Bethel and the lower Yukon, and then out to the west here in the central Aleutians. There is a system that's going to be sliding southeastward along the Aleutians for Sunday. And then on Monday morning, still IFR conditions here along the intercoastal mountains of the Panhandle, southeast mainland, eastern Kenai, along the Alaska Range, especially the east-southward facing slopes. Much of the area of the southwest interior seeing IFR conditions, again including places like Bethel. And then up here north and east of Fairbanks and up along areas of the central North Slope, maybe toward around Dead Horse New Exit. And for Monday afternoon, maybe a little bit of a relief, more in the way of MVFR conditions across the mainland interior, areas of the Panhandle, northeastern Gulf Coast, still some IFR. Bering Strait down through St. Lawrence and along the outer Yukon coast to Nunavik Island, and then also back out here toward the far western Aleutians as yet another low is going to be sliding southeastward across the Aleutians on Tuesday. So pass conditions up to the North Anativik Pass Sunday. IFR conditions becoming MVFR. Same thing, Adigan Pass, IFR conditions early Sunday giving way to MVFR conditions. And along the west arm of the Alaska Range, generally IFR conditions are expected. Lake Clark, Merrill, on up through Rainy Pass. Windy Pass, IFR, Sunday morning becoming MVFR. Reverse of that, Isabel, MVFR becoming IFR. And then Mentasta Pass, generally MVFR conditions may be improving a bit to VFR for the afternoon. Tanita Pass should generally hold on to MVFR conditions. That'll be the case at Portage Pass, though the east entrance and out toward Prince William Sound will likely become IFR Sunday, especially later afternoon and by evening. Chilkoot and White, IFR conditions are expected there throughout the day Sunday. And looking at the surface freezing line for Sunday morning, it extends down into the central Bering to near St. Matthew, kind of bumps up off the lower Yukon coast, Nunavik Island, then running down along Kuskokwim, Bristol Bay coastline up into south central, and then extending out along the inner channel, intercoastal mountains there of the Panhandle. And freezing levels aloft are only 2,000 feet out over the Gulf. Behind me, though, there is that area of low pressure sliding southeastward to the south and west of it. We do find freezing levels aloft bumping upwards of 6, 8, even 10,000 feet. But that warmer air will get pinched off as the low heads southeastward here as we go into later Sunday, early Monday. And looking at the greatest threat for some icing, moderate icing threat here across Much of the Panhandle, northeastern Gulf Coast, and the Yakutat Bay above 5,000 feet. Interior areas we do find isolated to moderate icing, Bering Strait, Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound, even along and north of the Yukon River, anywhere from around above 2,000 to 3,000 feet. And then out here across the Aleutians, especially central eastern Aleutians, the icing potential will be moderate there, but above 6,000 and 8,000 feet because, again, of that little warmer, moister air aloft that'll be drawn just ahead of that low as it slides southeastward. And looking at the jet stream pattern, relatively not much going on along the northern Gulf. Winds are not especially that strong or into the mainland interior. We do have a jet core, though, of 160 knots coming on up toward Vancouver Island, British Columbia. And then this one, 180 knot jet core, just southwest of the Aleutians. But otherwise, we are entrenched in the cooler, colder air north of these features. Bringing it down to 9,000 feet or 700 millibars, we do find a broader base of 30 to even locally 45 knot winds from the Yukon Territory down through the Panhandle and into Vancouver Island, spreading inland into Western Canada. Up here to the north, low circulation in the mid-levels, stronger winds in the Chukchi Sea, locally 35 to 45 knots out of the southeast to east. And then you can see a reflection of that stronger 180 knot jet core at 30,000 feet here at mid-levels at 9,000 feet. That's around 90 knots there to the southwest of the Aleutians. And for 3,000 feet then on Sunday, we have not an especially strong southwest flow into the Panhandle, but perhaps 25, 30 knots. Arctic coast, Utqiagvik, especially off of Point Lay, east-southeast winds 35 to 40 knots into the Chukchi Sea. And then here, the main circulation, low pressure here, it's going to be sliding downward across the central Aleutians. Winds on the north side, 35, 45 knots, but the south side, there are much stronger winds to 60, 70 knots. Just to the south-southwest of the Aleutian chain, and those strongest winds should slide just along and south of the Aleutians as we go through Sunday, early Monday. So as a result, turbulence threat. We will find some moderate turbulence in the Panhandle, especially up around Sitka, down on the outside there of Prince of Wales Island. Surface to 6,000 feet, there could be some isolated moderate turbulence even back toward Cape Suckling, Yakutat Bay. In the far north, there could be some isolated moderate turbulence along the Arctic coast. Surface to 3,000 feet, but the better bet, surface to 4,000 feet in the vicinity of the Lisbon Peninsula. And then coming down here along the Alaska Peninsula, Cape Newingham could see some isolated moderate turbulence, surface to 4,000 feet, and then a broader area of moderate turbulence, especially through the central western Aleutians on Sunday. Surface to 3,000 feet, and I wouldn't even rule out some isolated severe turbulence there on the south side of the central Aleutians as we go into Sunday afternoon and evening.